Salve Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father loves me, so I also have loved you. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. This is my commandment: love one another as I love you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I no longer call you slaves, because a slave does not know what his master is doing. I have called you friends, because I have told you everything I have heard from my Father. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you, and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give you. This I command you: love one another." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus
Jesus wants to be your friend. But we need to consider the definition of friendship. I would begin by referring to a famous person. Who's ever heard of Aristotle? Great. Who has ever heard of Nicomacheus? No one has heard of Nicomacheus. I see one hand back there. Nicomacheus was Aristotle's son. Aristotle wrote a book which became known as the Nicomachean Ethics. It was an ethics book that he wrote for his son. You could say his legacy, all the things that he thought his son should know to be a good and upright man. And so in this book, Aristotle describes three types of friends. He says at first you have friends who are useful. Friends who are useful are a relationship that's based on, you could say, mutual utility. The paper delivery person who comes to our rectory at 5 a.m., I have a useful relationship with her. She drives through quickly, throws the paper on the porch, and drives out as quickly as possible, moving on to the next place. She brings my paper to me, I read my paper, and send my check to the union leader and help contribute to her part-time job salary. I've never really met her. I've seen her in a flash as she drives by, but I have a relationship of utility with her. You may know a clerk in a store who's your favorite clerk, and you go out of your way to go to that person. You may have a coworker who you work with and you work together, and so you have a useful relationship. Useful relationships are good, but when we begin to abuse use, they become bad. And so there has to be something that kind of tells us what a perfection of that is. The second type of friendship is a friendship for pleasure. There are some people who are just fun to be with. Does anybody know someone like that? Your husband or your wife, right? Yes. Okay. So there are some people who are fun to be with. They're enjoyable. We enjoy being with them. These are relationships of pleasure, but relationships of pleasure can also become abusive. And so they have to be careful. On the other hand, the highest form of friendship, according to Aristotle, would be friends for what he calls the good. Aristotle understood that there was a perfection of good. In other words, good wasn't his opinion. Good was, there is this perfect image of good, and that is where everybody should be looking to when they talk about good. A perfect, almost a heavenly good. Okay? And so he would call a relationship for the good a relationship between two people who are alike in understanding what is excellence in goodness. Interesting. And these two people wish to share that excellence with one another, and they're interested in a lasting excellence. In other words, if I'm going to be a friendship of the good, it's going to be a friendship that lasts for a long time. And it's also going to have a degree of sacrifice for the person with whom I want to have a relationship of the good. They're going to be first, even before my needs. Jesus says to his disciples, in other words, people who he is presuming want to have a common understanding of what it is to be involved in a friendship. He says to his disciples, so they're not the people who are casual participants. They're not the people who are kind of observing. They're people who are saying to themselves, I want to be in a friendship with him. And I want to be on a friendship in a way that's good for both of us. Because that's what Jesus wants. And so Jesus begins by saying to his disciples, you are my friends. What does that tell you? The friendship begins with him and his gift to us. He is saying, I want to be your friend. Think about that for a minute. Think about how wonderful and powerful that is. Jesus wants to be my friend. Can you imagine that? And so this friendship is under his initiative. His initiative. He starts this friendship. And so he says, okay, it was not you who chose me, I chose you. I want to have this friendship with you. Now comes the question, do you want to share it with me? Do you want to share my understanding of what this friendship is? Is that the kind of friendship you want between us? Because that is how we're going to have a relationship. Do you want my understanding of friendship? And so he says, remain in my love. In other words, this is my idea of love. I want to give this to you, but do you agree with my idea of love? Isn't that what people do when they're engaged? They discover whether or not they have the same idea of love. And so here is Jesus asking the question, remain in my love. Do you want to do that? If you do, he says, keep my commandments, and you will remain in my love. Keep my commandments. What does that mean? That means that between us as friends, you have an understanding of what my expectations are in love. I am showing you a new standard of what love is. My friends are willing to have a relationship with me based on those standards. It's what they should expect of me and what I should expect of them. Jesus is establishing a new normal. His definition of love, and friendship, which he chooses to share first, is on the cross. I lay down my life for my friends. There is no love bigger than this. I am showing you the highest excellence in what it is to be loved. I'm doing that for you. Would you like to be in a relationship with someone who's doing that for you? Would you like to be in a relationship with me, Jesus is asking. He's interested in the love that's the ultimate good for you. Because he says there's no greater love than to lay down one's life for friends. The ultimate good, what's ultimately best for you. And here's other ways that he describes that, why he begins to take the first step in love in calling you a friend. In my Father's house, where all my friends are invited, there are many rooms. There's a place for you. I have prepared a dwelling for you because I want to be with my friends forever. And I am going to come back and take you to myself because I don't abandon my friends. I love my friends. And I'll do anything for my friends. I will go that far to get my friends. Would you like to be my friend? Why? You're my friend. And I call you friends. In other words, Jesus is calling all friendships, beginning with him, to evolve to this kind of love. All of them. Really, even the person down the street who's like the biggest pain, and really that person too? Because holiness calls us to the perfection of that love for everybody. But it cannot be done without the grace of Jesus Christ himself. And so, I can't do this? Yes, you can, because Jesus makes a promise at the end of this passage. Whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give you. And so here is what we need to ask today. Jesus, I want the grace to be your friend. Jesus, I want the grace to be your friend. Jesus, I want the grace to accept your friendship. Jesus, I want the grace to begin today being your type of friend to the ones I love, and as I get better at it, to the ones I have trouble loving. Because you said, love the Lord your God and your neighbor as yourself. Jesus, I want to be your friend.
Regina Celi, letare